Welcome back to another UFC fight prediction video. In this video, I'll be predicting the main card fights for UFC Fight Night 131, Rivera versus Moraes. And without further ado, let's start with the first fight on the main card. In our first fight on the main card, we have in the light heavyweight division, Gian Villante versus Sam Alvey. Both of these fighters have a lot of power in their hands, but Villante doesn't have the best chin, and Alvey has an iron chin. Villante has a lot of solid attributes. He is big, strong, and powerful, and has a good gym, but his fight IQ has failed him numerous times. Sam Alvey has a suspect fight IQ as well, causing him to lose to some questionable competition, but at the same time, he can beat some better competition. He's a slower fighter with a lot of power, but his style relies heavily on the counter, which is good in this fight because Villante leaves huge openings in his strikes. But I'm going to go a different route in favor of Villante in this fight, however. I feel that in his last fight, I saw improvements in his striking, both offensive and defensive, and he was able to pick his punches more instead of just forcing things like he's done in the past. I believe this slight adjustment that he has made, along with his size, strength, fairly decent wrestling, the good gym that's backing him, Sarah Ray Longo, this will all be enough for him to be able to freeze Sam Alvey up for large portions of this fight. And I see a tough fight with some scares, but I have Villante by decision. So in this fight, I have Gian Villante via decision. In our next fight on the main card, we have a match in the featherweight division, Julio Arce versus Daniel Tamor. This is a matchup between two solid strikers who have rounded out their full MMA game. I like Julio Arce's precision and composure with his boxing, and Daniel Tamor brings a lot of flame and fury with his aggressive kickboxing style. I believe that the Chris Boxing with Julio Arce can neutralize the aggressiveness of Daniel Tamor, but I don't think he will be able to do it or neutralize the striking in this fight. I feel that Tamor will be aware of this and use his vast striking experience he has, and will make adjustments to deal with Arce's Chris Boxing. And his aggressiveness will score more favorably on his card, as well as he may score a knockdown at some point in this fight. I see the fight being closely contested, but after 3 rounds, I see Daniel Tamor with his hand being raised due to his aggressiveness, landing the harder shots, landing the more telling shots, and the judges will be more perceptive of his aggressiveness and the hardness of his shots. And you know how they judge stuff. So in this fight, I have Daniel Tamor via decision. In our next fight, we have in the welterweight division, Jake Ellenberger versus Ben Saunders. This is a battle of two veterans that have been in and around the UFC for many years, both outside and inside the UFC. Well, Ellenberger has been in the UFC. I think he hasn't been cut yet, but Ben Saunders has been in the UFC, was cut, came back. So he's been in and out of UFC for years. They both have been in the UFC in or around the UFC for close to a decade, maybe even more. They once were stars, solid contenders, and certainly faced the cream of the crop. But all that being said, I feel that their time has passed. They are no longer contenders, but more so gatekeepers to gauge the next contenders. Jake Ellenberger is 3-7 in his last 10 fights, 1-4 in his last 5 fights. But all those losses have come to future champions or title contenders. Outside his last brutal loss to Mike Perry, that was the only one that hasn't yet came to be a true contender or a true title threat. So there's one right there. And on the other side, Ben Saunders is 6-4 in his last 10 fights, a positive record, and then 2-3 in his last 5. Ben Saunders, so he fared a little bit better. But Ellenberger has overall fought much better competition. But that's enough briefing. This is about how they match up, not MMA math. I feel that Saunders is more well-rounded. He is daily everywhere, but what he lacks is what I see will cause him to lose this fight. Jake Ellenberger has solid power, good wrestling, along with his heavy pressure to go with that wrestling, and solid ground and pound. I think his strength and athleticism, though not what it once was, would allow him to beat Ben Saunders to the punch, hurt Ben Saunders, and he will use a lot of his muscle, his strength, athleticism to kind of muscle Ben Saunders around, dictate the pace of the fight, choose where the fight goes. I see Ellenberger mixing in takedowns when needed or presented, as well as landing hard shots. I believe Ben Saunders can certainly make this fight gritty, but he doesn't have the power that has caused issue for Ellenberger. So after 3 gritty rounds, I have Ellenberger winning this fight. So in this fight, I have Jake Ellenberger via decision. In our next fight, we have in the heavyweight division, Walt Harris versus Daniel Spitz. This matchup has a bit of unknown factor to it, mostly on Spitz and plus them being heavyweights and how easily the tide can change with one big strike in the heavyweight division. I think Walt Harris is the more proven fighter, whereas we have not seen much from Spitz. He is 1-1 in the UFC, an unimpressive decision loss to Mark Godbeer in his first fight, and a quick finish over a faded Anthony Hamilton in his last fight. I think Walt Harris has what it takes to win this fight. I see Spitz with the height advantage, but Harris with the size advantage. Harris is the more athletic fighter, and he has all the tools to be a solid top 15 fighter. Just needs to work on his IQ and improve on his overall technique and skill set. I think he'll be able to use his speed, improve skill sets to land hard shots when needed to outstrike Spitz. I think Spitz can present some challenge with his own offense, but I see Harris pretty much picking apart Spitz with his striking and then finding those openings later on in the fight. And I see by the second round, I think he'll have figured out Spitz, landing a couple good shots on him, got his timing down. So in this round, I see Harris winning via a TKO in the second round. So in this fight, I had Walt Harris via second round TKO. Now on to our co-main event. In our co-main event, we have in the lightweight division, Gregor Gillespie versus Vince Pichel. This is a good fight to watch, to keep your eyes on, because you might see a future contender coming out of this fight. Vince Pichel is a solid fighter, deadly on the feet, and can be brutal on the ground with his ground and pound. He has only one pro loss, and that was to a solid Sambo fighter in Rustam Khabilov, a fight in which he was slammed repeatedly till he was knocked unconscious. Pichel is fighting another high-level grappler, again in Gregor Gillespie, who's a 4-time Division I All-American wrestler and an NCAA champion. I'm not saying he will get suplexed again by Gillespie, but I'm saying Gillespie has all the tools to make it a rough night for Pichel. Gillespie is a full MMA fighter, not just a wrestler, and he has transitioned to his skill sets over very well and has improved upon his striking, added striking to his wrestling and his overall game. And that striking is solid. And he brings that insane wrestler's pace, along with smothering wrestling, solid grappling, ground and pound, good transitions, and good submission skills, and that good finishing instinct. I think Gillespie will be too much for Pichel in this fight. There will be a filling out process, is always with fights, but once Gillespie figures out the timing, the range, he will smother Pichel and finish him. I see him breaking down Pichel in the first, then getting a finish in the second round. He can be a future title threat for sure, but to conclude this fight predictions, I see Gregor Gillespie via second round submission. Then on into our main event. In our main event of the night, we have a bantamweight matchup of Jimmy Rivera versus Marlon Moraes. This fight on paper has a lot of, all the makings to be a fun, exciting fight, a true bar burner. Both fighters have solid striking, good hearts, well-rounded skill sets, and will be fighting to prove themselves to be next in line for a title shot in the bantamweight division. I see Jimmy Rivera is the more aggressive fighter. He's definitely technical, not just a brawler. But in this fight, he's the less technical fighter, in my opinion. He makes a lot of things happen with his aggression. He can get in on fighters and land big shots and rock them, or use his pressure to set up takedowns. Despite being known for his power, he has only one KO win in the UFC, and only 4 of his wins are either via KO or TKO, while 15 of those wins are via decision. Marlon Moraes is the more technical fighter, in my opinion, again, because some people see it one way, some people see it other ways, but in my opinion, I think Marlon Moraes is the more technical fighter. I think most people would agree with me on that. He doesn't force anything or necessarily just pressure with forward aggression. His strikes are well timed and don't take much setup, so it's hard for fighters to pick up where his strikes are coming from, what he's setting up next, where he's coming from, and all that stuff. So he's very good at doing that. His strikes are quick and sharp. His movements are also sharp. He has a lot of power as well, and is large and filled out for the weight class. He's big for 135, and he uses his size well, and it doesn't burden him like some other fighters who are big for the weight class. Moraes has good submission skills, good submission ability. He can snap on submissions very quickly. I think the sharpness in his technique will cause Rivera a lot of problems, as he won't react like most fighters that Rivera has faced or beaten up to this point, who give into that pressure, who kind of back up on that pressure. Moraes will be there to counter the pressure that Rivera is bringing, and have a reaction to most of what Rivera is presenting, and won't just be backing up and get overwhelmed by that pressure. The grappling advantage I would give to Moraes as well. I think his grappling is more technical, and he might give up a technique or two, takedown or two to Rivera, because Rivera will be aggressive. He'll be going for takedowns. He'll be hunting those takedowns. I don't think Moraes will be able to defend all those takedowns, so I think Rivera might get a takedown, but I don't see him doing much with those takedowns once he gets him down. And I think also those takedowns could potentially work out in the other way for Rivera and end up with him getting caught in a guillotine potentially. But now that I've done the briefing of this fight, I'll give my prediction. I think this fight will be competitive. Rivera's aggressiveness will certainly present challenges, but I see Moraes being able to effectively counter Rivera's aggression and break him down over the rounds. And I see by the third round that Moraes will have worn Rivera down with damage, and the openings will be there. And I see Moraes capitalizing on those openings and stopping Rivera via TKO in the third round. So in the main event, I have Marlon Moraes via third round TKO. That concludes my fight predictions for UFC Fight Night 131, Rivera versus Moraes. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and come back for more videos. Peace.